podcast episode 67.
Woohoo!
Josh, what's going on?
Oh, you know.
Living the dream?
Living the dream. Just got back from Washington, D.C. for my birthday weekend. Went and saw a bunch of museums, saw the couple of monuments. You know, it was a good time. I think
Saw some monuments?
Some monuments,
Some old stuff?
Some old stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, went to the art museum too, the botanical gardens. It was a good time. Unfortunately, it was Easter, so there was a crap ton of people.
I didn't know Easter was a popular time to travel.
Dude, I didn't either. Trust me, it was. There were so many children.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I could appreciate everything a little bit more now, you know, because I think, just like you, I hadn't been there since I was 12, maybe.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah, but it was great. Like, you know, we have our Cleveland Natural History Museum. It's pretty good, but, oh, man, they got...
It ain't nothing on that.
Yeah, hundreds of dinosaur bones, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to go back there real bad.
Yeah, you got to go.
Nice.
Yeah, especially because you're already going out there all the time anyway. It's a short little drive down from Connecticut.
Yeah, it's really not that far. It's also not far from here. What is it, like 3 hours, 4 hours? Something like that?
It was five and a half.
5?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, that's a little longer.
Yeah, it's not bad, though.
No, it's not bad.
It's still an easy weekend trip, you know?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, how about you?
Not a whole lot. Been getting over this fucking cold, dude.
Yeah.
All this weather outside. Got the sinuses going real crazy. Can't talk. I'm probably going to sound real weird today when I'm talking.
Yeah.
Lose my breath
Dude.
extra hard.
Well, yeah, when we were in D.C., it was like 78 degrees. We're walking around, T-shirts.
Nice.
Yeah, and then on the way home, it's just...
I'm ready to
snow.
feel some heat. You know, I'm ready to walk outside and be like, ooh, it's toasty.
Yeah.
Put the
Was it warm
shorts
here
on.
on the weekend at all?
Not really. I mean, Easter Sunday, it was sunny, you know? Like, we've
Yeah.
had a lot of sun lately, which has been good, but it's still been pretty chilly. Like,
Yeah.
you're still outside in a jacket, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I had my winter coat on. Sunday morning, actually, I took Vinny for a walk, and I had my winter jacket on and everything. I was still pretty cold.
Yeah.
It was pretty chilly.
At least you...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you want to go out and, like, just feel that warmth. You're like, whew, I might get
Yeah.
a little sweat.
Oh, yeah.
Also, did a good job outside from last Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
That new
putting
mulch,
it together,
everything.
you know? Looking fresh.
Yeah, it's looking good out there.
So yeah, all's good. Last podcast has been pretty well received so far. Like I said, when we finished that last one, that was a really good one. You know, one, the fact that we were able to start doing the virtual ones. Like, we've never done that before. Obviously, that was the first one. I jinxed us saying we weren't going to run into any hiccups. We did run into some fucking hiccups, but we got them fixed.
Yeah.
And all is well now. That is why it is not live on YouTube yet, is because the audio recording, my first upload of it, I screwed up, and then I had to go back in and figure out how to fix it with the help of Steve Perino, Compass Audio. Shout out.
Thank you, Steve. Always saving us.
So it's good now. We have another great guest next week. That is going to be a sweet one that we're not going to spoil for everybody
No
yet.
spoilers.
But just get ready. Next Thursday,
Yeah.
it's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one.
I have to be. I gotta admit, I was really surprised on like how good the quality was.
Oh, dude, the audio
The
quality
audio.
of the last one, like the fact that it got everything so good,
Yeah,
it was great.
dude, I was
Great.
like, you have to like really listen to his voice to know that he was like on an audio.
Yeah.
like and when it skips.
Because
or
sometimes
whatever,
when you hear, like, I've heard virtual ones before. Like, for example, I was on, my friend Dave in Buffalo had me on his podcast, and we did a virtual one where he did it, like, same deal, and I was the virtual guest.
Yeah.
And I was doing it through my phone. But I was on a phone call for it. It wasn't video, you know? And the audio was garbage. At least my audio was, I should say. You know,
Yeah.
like, I listened back to it. I was like, man, like, there are times I can't even tell what I'm saying.
yeah,
So
yeah. So props.
that's the one thing
yeah.
I'm pumped on is our audio quality has been really good.
Yeah,
So,
and hats off to Zoom, I guess, because I mean we recorded through their app,
yeah.
and the audio was pretty great.
Sounded great. So, in between last one and this one, we got, you know, just going off of what the people are asking for, you know. I got a message from somebody a couple days ago, a new follower. I don't know if a new follower or not, but she discovered the podcast recently.
Okay.
She had a couple topics we wanted to discuss. So, first one here is I guess there is this K91, dog training by K91. She said that they've got a pretty interesting training style, and I guess that he's big on creating some regulation in the dog training industry, and she wanted to know what we thought about some of his work. So I pulled up a video. I know nothing about this company. From the videos that I've seen so far, he seems like your typical sport/pet trainer. Seems pretty cool. So we'll take a look at some of his videos and see what we think. Okay. In addition to that, she had a general question. So she said also how to handle feeling defeated or embarrassed on a public outing. Example, she had a dog, did a few public outings with. They were great, but did the final one, and it was like week one. No focus, blowing off everything, and extreme vocalization. I've just started your podcast, so if you've touched on these topics, I'll get there soon. Man, do I know that feeling.
Yeah. Yep.
Listen, we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but we'll start with that question here. Feeling defeated on your public outings. And this I'm going to make apply to both trainers as well as owners, right? Because it very much is a feeling that all of us across the board have had, whatever avenue of dog training that you're in with your dog, know, whether you're a force-free trainer, whether you're a balance trainer, whether you're just an owner, whatever, you know, those ups and downs.
Oh, yeah.
The waves of like, man, we're getting somewhere with this kind of stuff. And then suddenly something happens that just freaking sets your ass back emotionally.
Yep.
Right. First off, I like to look at situations like that. And first and foremost, I tell everybody, like clients, for example, right? Like, let's take board and trains, right? Because I would say one of the most common things that I used to run into with my clients, and this was a result of not good enough communication of expectations with people, is they would pick up their dog from a board and train. They would think that my dog just did phenomenal, right? I just watched them do all these things perfectly for the trainer, right? The trainer showed me how to do all these things perfectly, right? And they leave the board and train and they go to like a busy park, or they go to a pet store, or they go to Home Depot, or they go to do something that they've seen the dog do successfully so many times, right? And it's like a goddamn shit show, right? Like it's like day one before they even sent the dog to training. It's like nothing got any better, and it's like, did I just waste my money? Did I do a good job? Right? Like, is it the dogs? Shouldn't they know how to work through this? Whatever. Right? And then same deal as trainers, right? As I'm working through the process, I could have, let's take dog reactivity. In a lot of cases is where we'll see this kind of stuff, I could take the dog to like 3 different places and have it walk perfectly past all these other dogs. And it's great. It's like, oh, we're in the clear. And then for whatever reason, that one particular type of dog walks by, that just sets them off, and they just go absolutely bananas. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like what is going on? Right. So first off, it's very normal that stuff like this is going to happen. Dogs go through these ups and downs, right? Dogs go through peaks and valleys with their training, right? And it's important to have a very analytical viewpoint on this kind of stuff to figure out, one, what went wrong, right? What did I do incorrectly that didn't prepare the dog for this situation, right? 2, what can I do moving forward to make sure that this doesn't happen again, right? And 3, how do I properly create a blueprint for the owner that's going to allow them to understand that the dog will give them a hard time with some of this stuff throughout the program, and how to go about fixing that stuff. Yeah. Right? So not knowing the context of this individual situation, I know she said the first couple of public outings were like golden with the dog. There was no problems, right? He was really good and this and that. And again, I don't know how this person trains. I don't know what their methodology is, stuff like that. If things were really, really good, I would ask myself then, in this new situation where the dog struggled, was I in a new environment, first off? Were the first 2 public outings in a more simple situation, right? Like, we'll see that we go to Home Depot a couple times with dogs, right? And they do really good there. But then if we go to Edgewater or an outdoor park, they do really poorly. And the only reason for that is that indoor situations for dogs tend to be less pressure. I don't know what it is, but there's something about this just like wide open space everywhere that gets dogs just a little bit more fired up, right? 2, did you run into a situation where if it wasn't a new environment with your dog and you haven't generalized it to a new place, was it just that the place was way busier this time, right? Was there more people? Was there more dogs, right? 3, if it was the same amount of busy, were the types of dogs or types of distractions that you were passing by different, right? Was it more aroused dogs, more out of control dogs that you were passing? Were you passing them with more succession, with less time in between them to let the dog decompress, right? There's so many variables when this comes to this. So as far as tactically looking at it, you need to be able to look at, even if it seems like there's no difference, you need to figure out what the difference was, right? Were you doing it in the morning? Were you doing it in the evening? Were your public outings before, after you did a whole day of training with the dog where the dog was in a much lower state of arousal going into that public outing? Figure out the difference between what happened the times that it was successful and what happened in the times that it wasn't successful, right? It also could be the human element of sometimes as we get further in the program, we start to get in our mind that we're like in the clear, you know? And, you know, we kind of don't pay attention to the little details as much and we push the boundaries a little bit more, which also causes the explosions, right? Yeah. Could be anything, right? We could dissect that all day long, right? From there, I would look at if your training is really good, if you've set yourself up where you've taught and established all of these commands extremely well, right? Your expectation of the dog in these scenarios is very clear to them, right? Whether that's your walking positioning, your stationary commands, whatever. And you have yourself in a position where you could tell the dog yes and no in a very clear way, right? So you could reinforce them in a way that they really like, and you could punish them in a way that they really care about. Then you just hold them to the expectation of performing the behaviors and understand that the arousal may shift, right? Yeah. They may be a little bit more excited sometimes or a little bit less excited sometimes, depending on all of those other variables that we discussed, but you still have a means of holding them accountable to the expectation, right? Meaning sometimes I may take my dog to the park and I may make them do a downstay while I'm sitting at a picnic table, and they may be super chill and super calm and laying down and almost taking a nap. And sometimes I may do that and they may be wired and looking around and be really excited about all the things going on around them. But as long as they're still performing the behavior, those ups and downs are okay and will balance out as the dog continues to go to those public outings. Yep. Right? And that's something for owners to be aware of as well, is that when you take your dog to these places, don't worry so much about the energy, don't worry so much about the arousal and stuff. Focus on just the expectation of the dog and holding them to that expectation, right? I did a lesson yesterday with somebody, and we went to the house, and her dog's a little apprehensive of new people and new dogs and stuff like that. And I had her bring her dog out, and she was like, well, he's a little bit nervous around you. He was a little bit kind of grumbly and growly and apprehensive, and he wasn't lunging at me or anything. He was just kind of like hiding behind her. And she's just kind of like letting him do his thing, right? And she was like, well, I have a hard time when I take him new places because I feel like he's just so stressed all the time. I was like, well, by nature, he's a stressed out dog, right? Yeah. But you're not giving direction when he's stressed to help him work through those types of things, right? She wasn't giving him something to focus on so that he could experience the stressful thing and be compliant to her and still keep 50% of his attention on her, right? So you want to look at all these different variables, right? And you want to give your dog really good direction in these places using those commands and using that communication system you have in place so that ultimately they could experience these things and the stress or the arousal may come in and out, but they're still keeping 50% of the attention on you. And that's my only expectation. Can I get the dog to perform the things I want so I can put them in these situations so that they can experience all of the changing variables as they go through them and over time balance out and become okay with that kind of stuff? Right? Yeah. So long about way of saying it's normal. Stuff like that is going to happen, but you got to look at, was your training rock solid enough with the dog where your communication was in place where you could hold them to the expectation? If it wasn't, that's your problem, is that you got lucky the first couple times you took the dog places where they decided they were just going to be calm in that moment. But when push came to shove and they decided they would rather do something else or rather be distracted by other things, your communication system wasn't clear enough to be able to hold them to the expectation of what it is you wanted them to do. And then in addition to that, you need to continue exposing them to that kind of stuff to have those ups and downs, right? And listen, I've had my fair share of situations where I've taken dogs out in public and it's been like literally a freaking nightmare with them, just reacting at everything, freaking out, can't get them to hold a position, they're vocalizing, they're being dramatic, this, that.
Yeah.
And it's like a mess, And the best thing that I've done in those types of situations, I figure out what is the absolute easiest thing I could ask this dog to do in this moment so that we can end on some sort of success. Usually I'll find the quietest spot in the park, I'll put them into a downstay, and I'll just make them hold that downstay for like 10 minutes, And then I look at, again, was my communication clear enough to be able to ask them to do that? Did I keep my expectation low enough where they could be successful? And then you live to fight another day with it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So that's the biggest thing. Stuff like this is hard, and you'll start to experience, I think as you experience problems out in public, because I used to run into a lot more of it than I do now. And I think a lot of it is because when I go into new places, I almost expect them to be a lot worse at this point. So I keep my expectations very moderate, usually as they're working through this, because I understand we're kind of playing a marathon with this stuff, not a sprint. And it'll kind of expose holes in your training a little bit, the way that you're training and things that you need to do differently to prepare them for those bigger scenarios. You know? That's where you realize so much emphasis is put on like the teaching stages of training and getting the dog to a place where it's like, they're motivated and they're happy and this and that, but you're never preparing the dog for the situation where they would rather do something else. So I put a lot of my emphasis on the training after I've done those teaching stages of proofing those commands and leveraging little opportunities in their day-to-day with my corrections and with, the motivation that I'm using and stuff like that, so that when I run into those bigger situations, they're much less likely to blow me off.
Yeah.
Another example of something kind of similar to that, right? I have a client that I worked with yesterday, same deal. Yesterday, we were all over Northeast Ohio. We did like 5 in-home lessons, everywhere from Kirtland to Medina.
Oh, jeez.
We were all over the world.
Yeah, cross-country.
We filmed all of them. They're going to be sweet videos that are going to
yeah.
be coming up here soon because there were some really good lessons.
All right.
So another one, first time I worked with this lady, she did a full training program with somebody else. And the dog, just like what we're talking about, the dog was trained. The dog knew all of its commands and stuff like that, but there wasn't any emphasis put on proofing and like real-life distractions. This dog is having some of the most horrendous window reactivity that like this lady, I've never seen it like this before,
Okay.
The dog is losing its mind, biting the window, freaking out, and then turns around and like redirects on the owner and like starts trying to like attack them and stuff, and not like actually injure them, but like just goes full on psycho mode, So I was like, all right, take the dog out. Let's work the dog. I want to see you do some bed commands with the dog. So she goes and gets like turkey breast out of the fridge, and the dog is e-collar trained and stuff. And she's like trying to get the dog to do it and like feeding the dog turkey breast. And the dog's like messing up. And then she's trying to help the dog with the leash. And it was just like, it was kind of sloppy.
Yeah.
It was sloppy for better terms. And like, as far as training is concerned, but also in addition to that, she was treating the dog as if she was teaching a bed command to the dog.
Oh,
right. The dog knows the bed.
Yeah, he already knows.
You know what I mean? Like she spent weeks and weeks, and actually at this point months, working on her bed command with the dog, and the dog was not performing it because the dog was distracted and nervous that we were in the house. Right. So I told her, I was like, "Well, would you say that this dog knows the place command?" I think she was using place for it.
Place. Okay.
She was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, let's hold the dog accountable for doing the place command." So I had her do a process of 3 things, right? Thing number 1 was I said, eliminate all, stop saying anything, right? Because she was just talking to the dog too much to try to coax the dog into getting on the bed. I was like, don't say anything. Just take your leash and just get the dog on the bed 3 times. No, 0 verbal commands, right? She did it 3 times, getting the dog onto the bed, just leash. I was like, okay, cool. So now we know that the dog knows where the target is, right? So now what you're going to do is you're going to give your place command 1 time to the dog. She's like, okay. She said, place. The dog didn't do it. I said, that's how the dog know. She told the dog no, and I corrected the dog at like a 70 on the e-collar. Now, before everybody freaks out about that, the dog is pretty resistant to the e-collar, so that high of a level was like the equivalent of like a 30 for another dog, right? Dog kind of let out like a whoa, like I cared about that, and the dog ran right to the bed, right? Good. I was like, okay, cool. Now release the dog off and do it again. She did it again. Dog flew to the bed.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, now do it again. Dog flew to the bed.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, okay, cool. She's like, yeah, well, like, sometimes, he'll get on the place command, or she'll get on the place command, but she won't hold the command. I was like, all right, cool. Drop your leash. She's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, drop the leash. dropped the leash. We walked into the kitchen, right? The dog kind of like meandered off the bed. Like, what are you guys doing over there? I was like, tell the dog no. She told the dog no, cracked the dog at a 7 again. Dog was like, whoa, turned around, ran right back to the fucking bed. Right?
Yeah.
Literally, we spent the next 30 minutes going outside. There were people that walked by the front window, which she was literally getting nervous every time it happened because she's like, the dog freaks out anytime this happens. Anytime this happens right here. I was pounding on the door. We had Paige go outside. She's knocking on the door, stuff like that. Could not get the dog wouldn't get off the bed, right?
Heck yeah.
So I explained to her, I was like, we didn't fix this problem. I'm not saying we fixed this problem, but what we did was because her other thing was, well, when the dog starts doing this behavior, she's like, I'll correct at 100 and it doesn't do anything. I was like, yeah, well, how are you doing it? She's like, well, I'll start at like a 30 and then go to a 40. And then go to the typical push the dog up. And then in addition to that, that's the only time she corrects the dog at that motivating of a level. Right? So she's losing all these other opportunities where the dog's reacting impulsively to its fear or its anxiety in just its day-to-day life. So she's not having any leverage for when she runs into that big situation.
Yeah.
Right? So explain to her, by setting up these scenarios like this and working it in less distracting environments and holding the dog just as accountable for that type of stuff, you gain leverage for the big situations where the dog knows, if I can't even get away with this here, what makes me think I'm going to get away with this over here?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm saying this because this applies to this question this lady asked as well, where if you're getting your leverage, right, in all of these other situations, once you're past the training stages of things, you're holding the dog very accountable for non-compliance of all of these different things in your day-to-day. When you go into the bigger situations, you're going to have the dog in a much calmer state of mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's what people miss with training, is they don't move to those teaching stages. Or sorry, not the proofing stages of things.
Yeah.
So, long about way of saying it's normal. Reevaluate what was different about that situation than your other times, and then reevaluate, have you moved successfully into the proofing stages with your training so that you're preparing the dog for those distracting environments.
Yeah. Dang.
It was a long ass, all over the place answer to that question.
It was good though.
All right, guys. So we're gonna get into this Canine One page. I feel like I may have seen this guy around. I don't really know. He's got like 400,000 subs. So let's see what he's got. So just scrolling through his page, it looks like he does a lot of like protection training and stuff like that. Listen, whatever. There's plenty of people that are doing protection training fine. I don't typically advertise. I don't think it's good for your average owner, but I have no problem with people doing it.
Plus channels and save
Let's see what we got here.
$500 a year with YouTube TV. Try it free.
Check out this Verbo.
Fucking Verbo, man.
I know.
All right, here we go.
Have it sit. Nope. Good. Sit. Potty.
Hit him with the puckin.
I know.
Puckin. I believe puckin is German for attack.
Oh, really?
Puckin. Yeah.
Fucking. Epic.
That music, man.
I know, it's epic.
Canine One specialized dog training with knowledge, respect, and patience. Isn't that a nice dog?
No, she just looks mean.
Lot of protection training.
Yeah, a lot.
Giving the dog what he needs, not what you think he needs.
Give me that thing, girl.
I decided that if I cannot find a way to train a dog in a humane way, I will create a way.
It's not always about muscling a dog, beating a dog up. You gotta take your time.
One of the big things that I've learned from Mike is that you don't have to use force to get a dog to respect you or to listen to you.
I originally learned to administer punishment by jerking leashes, all right? Those were the mechanics. Take it like this and jerk the dog. Through the years, I have learned to get the same results by being gentler.
When we started here, he was like, if you yell at a dog or anything like that, he'll literally kick you out. It just made me realize, like, oh, okay, like, this guy really respects the animals.
It comes down to like relationship and wanting the dog to want to work for you.
If you have the right relationship with that dog, you
See those sideburns?
I know.
do not have to muscle around.
Way up here.
You want the dog to want to make you happy. That's why the relationship is number one.
Working with dogs has actually molded my character. It changed me as a person and how I handle myself and my approach towards people.
They're very, very similar to us. They're much more like us than they're not like us. That is why they are the first animal that we have really paired up with. You know, as long as there has really been man as we know it, there has been dog next to them because they share similar values. They are pack animals. We are pack animals. They have family units. They naturally want to follow a figure that is like a parent that provides for them and leads them to good things. I was always that kid that had all the snakes and lizards and rats and mice and hamsters, you name it. I always had animals. When I was in high school, I knew I wanted to pursue animals, but in particular, I had a love for dogs.
I'm trying to see some dog training. What do we got here? Let's see if we can move forward. There's a lot of talking here.
I think this is like a hype video.
Someone has
hype
to do
video.
it. This is why I got hired. I need to get this dog to obey. So I hung this poor dog, put it on the floor. It rolled over a couple of times. It gagged. And then I asked it to do the exercise again. And the dog didn't do it. I tried to place the dog into the position, and the dog tried to bite me, and I did it again. You know, by the third time I went to do it, my apprentice was crying. She was crying, telling me to please stop. And I was yelling at her. I was telling her, no, this is how it needs to be done. It was horrible. You know, it was really horrible. It wasn't why I wanted to train. I wanted to just like turn everything in right there. I put the dog away. I said, F this. You know, this isn't why I wanted to train dogs. People trust me with their dogs. This dog's name was Precious, for crying out loud. The dog's name was Precious. Someone loved this dog enough to name it Precious, trusting me with it. And what was I doing? I was behind closed doors, hanging the dog, and the dog was crying. It was a life-changing moment. And I decided I would never do that again. I would not go against my gut instincts, not go against why I wanted to become a dog trainer in the first place.
Okay, let's pause this for a second here, because there's a lot to unpack here right now. So first off, I don't disagree with anything this guy is saying, obviously, right? So like basically, his stance right now is, you know, clearly the guy is a prong collar, e-collar trainer still. Mm-hmm. He obviously uses food, he uses motivation. He's a balanced trainer, right? Yeah. Hell yeah, I'm into balanced training, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And basically what I'm getting from these 6 minutes we've watched so far or so is he started off on the very polar extreme side of pressure training, right? Which is we have no clue how this stuff actually works.
Yeah.
We're being ridiculously unnecessarily harsh on these dogs and adopting this mentality of like, you got to be the alpha and this dog needs to be compliant to you. And basically we're just like beating these dogs into submission and stuff like that, which listen, like reality check, like that shit exists in this industry. And I'm on the same side as this guy as far as like, I think that shit is garbage, obviously. We talked one time before about like an abusive situation. Obviously that was going viral as far as video and stuff. And there's a lot of videos like that come out, right? There was one recently that got posted from a, who the hell was it? It was an off-leash canine branch, which is like a franchise that's kind of similar to Sit Means Sit. Okay. I don't remember exactly where they were, but it was some girl working with like a doodle, and like she's trying to teach a down with the dog, and the girl's pissed off. She's fucking lighting this dog up for not downing. The dog's confused as shit. The dog has no clue what to do. I could see 17,000 holes in the training as I was watching the video, and it was horrible, right? It was a mess, right? That shit is awful, right? And I think we all can sit together and say that like that is not what we want to see in the industry. So I'm 100% with this guy on this kind of stuff. And I really have nothing against what he's saying, right? The interesting thing will be to see where the conversation goes from there. Because where I see a lot of people kind of get it wrong, right? Or I don't even want to say get it wrong, but take it too far is when you get into like the Larry Crones of the industry, who I use a lot because he's probably the loudest voice that's similar to this. But in my opinion, taking it too far to the extreme of basically if you do anything with these tools that's perceived by the dog as really aversive, you're using them incorrectly and you're being abusive, which is then creating this unrealistic expectation of why we use the tools in the first place. Right? We're still using prong collars and e-collars because the dog doesn't like them. We're still using corrections with the intent of creating an aversive event that the dog wants to avoid. Case in point, when I discussed the situation with the dog that I worked with yesterday, we used a high correction to get the dog to stop breaking its bed command so it would be compliant with it around the high distracting environments that were creating dangerous behaviors. You know what I mean? So I'll be interested to see how his training kind of comes about past that and where the conversation goes past that. Because I agree 100% with this kind of stuff. There's way too much of that in this industry. And with our guest next week, one thing I'm excited to chat about is this guest's opinion on a lot of the newer dog trainers that are coming out that don't have the knowledge of the things they're doing. And an interesting conversation I want to have is like, I believe in this industry, there is an amount of like education and or like paying your dues, working with or for somebody that has a good understanding of what they're doing if you want to be able to make it in this industry, right? Because a lot of people can get into it so easily without any of that education and just stumble through things and figure it out on their own, which will result in them doing a lot of things improperly. It will result in a lot more of this kind of stuff happening because they don't know and because they're looking to certain people in the industry that are coaching them into doing things more in that way. You know?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Oh no! Good, freak.
Now, what I don't get is why there's so much protection training. Like, that's all that I'm seeing right now. You know?
Watch the rope. Havoc. Sit. Pocket.
Have the dog's best interest in mind.
Everywhere we go, people are like, wow, we've never seen a dog trained like that.
Foundation-style dog training is not about the efforts of one dog trainer. It is designed to live forever because it is based off of the efforts of the best in the industry. And it is designed to improve over time as dog training minds get together and share what is working best.
People that I know, they're like, oh, do you teach dogs to do anything else but attack people? And I'm like, yeah, like, I do obedience. I train puppies. I have Labradoodle puppies and Chihuahuas that I train. Once people start to see the progress and they see that they're having success, they want to do more.
Patience is key. Approach is definitely key.
I just think it's the best training out there. The training's scientific. It's fair to the dog always. You know, it's respectful of the dog always.
It was beautiful. Like, to me, that was priceless because you actually made the connection and taught the dog something.
My job is to make you better than I am in a much shorter amount of time. And that's how we evolve.
I honestly think it should be the standard. I mean, especially for like police work, I mean, it should just be the standard.
If you are motivated and devoted to being the best dog trainer that you can be for the sake of our industry and our dogs, click on the link for more information.
Click the link, bro.
It's literally all.
That was a hype video. All right, well, listen. So like I said, no problem with any of it. It's cool, right? Like, I do get the thing that he said is like, the one guy said, you know, do you guys do anything but teach dogs how to bite and attack? And they're like, well, no, like I do all of this obedience training. I work with all these puppies. He's like, but He's like, once people start seeing the results, they want to do more with their dog. And this is where I hear a lot of trainers like them say things like that, where it's like they want to do more with their dog. So we get them into protection sports and doing that kind of stuff because there's a big appeal to it for people, right?
Yeah.
People really like doing that kind of stuff. Again, the only problem I have with any of that is you get into then just the conversation of like, is protection training the thing we need to be pushing them towards?
Yeah.
Right? Do we really need to be teaching these dogs to bite more and bite better?
Yeah.
I don't know, right? I have no problem with any of that. I want to see like dog training though.
Dang, these are long videos.
Yeah, they are. Jesus Christ. They're probably just full. Yeah, Jesus Christ. They're all like over an hour long.
Maybe go to his most popular.
They're old videos, I think. Here. Let's see.
Attack training. 12 million.
How to train a dog to attack.
How to train a dog to sit.
Yeah, right?
Oh, that's 8 years ago.
Can you train a wolf?
Stream 85
Let's
plus
see.
channels and save up to $500 a year with YouTube TV. Try it free.
Man, they're pushing that on you right now.
Smile for the camera.
Foundation style.
I can't read all that. It's too blurry. Use the technical. The best combination of techniques are taught in layman's terms to gently train even the most difficult dogs. Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. I can't read that. What the hell does that say? Distractions.
Distractions, yeah.
Let me do a couple recalls with her.
Here we practice. Come when called with a Canadian timber wolf.
Good girl. Good girl. Freak. Good girl. You wanna play with Shelly? You wanna play with Shelly, girl? You don't come. No. Girl. Good girl. You look freak.
I don't know if I agree with that at all.
No.
Learning theory does not discriminate against breeds or animals.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, if you're using positive reinforcement, if you're using negative reinforcement, right, any animal will figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Basically, what for people listening, they were asking what works on a wolf may not work for a dog, so that's why they're working with them
It's
to
the
fine
opposite.
tune.
They said what works on
Oh,
a dog may not work on a wolf, but what works on a wolf will work on a dog.
Yeah. They're fine tuning their training.
Good girl. Good girl.
So what I'm gathering per some of the charts and stuff that he placed beforehand is they're doing everything minus the positive punishment, which is common, I would say, in the dog training world. I think positive punishment is a essential part of training, right, when you get into the proofing stages of things. But negative reinforcement is still an aversive. You're teaching the dog to escape pressure. So if the dog is not listening, teaching them to escape pressure sometimes can be more clear. And there's a lot of conversation in the dog training world about, you know, they talk about like command amplification. And since the use of negative reinforcement is a reinforcement technically, even though you're using an aversive, that release of pressure should still signal like positive responses out of the dog. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a popular trainer out there. His name's Bart Balone. Bart is kind of pioneered this like knee po style, it's called, right? Which is basically
Knee-po-po?
negative, positive, right? so the concept is basically that you're double reinforcing all of your behaviors, right? So every time you give a command, you're using negative reinforcement. Give your command, release pressure when the dog does it. Negative reinforcement, give your command, release pressure when the dog does it at lower levels so that and rewarding, obviously, once the dog actually performs the behaviors. So basically what's happening is the dog has the intensity behind doing the behavior because they want to escape that pressure, but they also know what happens when they escape it is something positive happening, right? So it's like, like the escape of pressure elicits a positive response and they get something positive in association with it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these trainers adopt this philosophy, right, in training their dogs. The argument a lot of people have against it is it's contingent on you using your negative reinforcement every time you give a command, pretty much. You know what I mean? Which is like, then you get into the argument against e-collars and stuff, and some people say it's because of the constant use of the e-collar, right? It's because you're using it all the time, where I prefer to train in a way where, you know, after we've trained the behaviors, I don't have to use the e-collar unless the dog doesn't comply with the command.
Yeah.
So...
You look free? Yeah, silly.
Quick,
Recall?
They played differently than dog, her and dog. Yeah, he's much more like standoffish. He's not as like.
he looked like he was like trying to avoid it.
You look calm. Good girl. No. Good girl. Good girl.
I don't know.
It's fine, right?
Yeah.
I have no problem with this. They're training the dog. They're using the quadrants of learning, right? He's standing out against people that are being fucking assholes in the dog training industry. I've got no problem with any of this. My biggest concerns, like when people ask me to review these videos, right? When I look at them, typically speaking, what I'm looking for is, are the things they're doing scientifically accurate? Right?
Yeah.
If they are claiming to use quadrants of learning, right?
Yeah.
If they are claiming science in dog training, is the way they're implementing them correct? Right? Everything I'm seeing here is, right? Clearly based on the way this guy is kind of preaching his stuff and how he's standing out against some of those people, he's clearly showing he understands how this stuff works. Right? Now, the other thing that I typically look for when it comes to this kind of stuff is, are they getting too over the top with saying that, you know, the way other people are doing it is incorrect, right?
Yeah.
If it's just a matter of like personal preference. Because listen, like, I may not train dogs exactly how this guy does, but I can understand why he's training the dogs the way that he's training them.
Yeah.
You know? So I have no problem with any of this.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that chart that he had.
Yeah.
Foundation dog training chart. Cannot find that. It must be his own thing that he came up with or something.
Aggressive, fearful dog rehab.
I kept seeing this shoe brand all over TikTok. It's called Kizik.
Hello, folks. It's me. Whoops, I did a super zoom on you. It's me, Earl, and Darren again. This is still the same day. First video here. We've been just chatting for a couple of hours about stuff. Darren's doing actually really good. We've been letting him hang around with us. He's been getting a lot more comfortable, even to the point, and this is good because I waited, a day not to jump the gun, even to the point where he's actually been asking for attention and affection, which is key with any dog establishing the right relationship, because you don't want to smother them. You do kind of want to wait till they're asking for it. And then even then, if you want to set the pace off right about who's going to be setting the pace and leading them through this life is one of the first things we really do is just don't give the dog affection until one, you can tell that they actually want it, and then two, we do it on our call. So he's looking for it, but he doesn't get it. But what I do is now that I know that he wants it, I'll make sure it's me that's the one that's actually initiated it. Darren. Good boy. See, now I'll give him the affection.
I agree, right? I was talking about when you have fearful dogs, right? The process of introducing your dog is first and foremost, I like to do neutral coexistence. So if I've an owner that's in control of this dog, get your dog to do something, get your dog to be compliant on you for a little bit until you have the attention on you. You know that ear is turned to you, right? From there, you release the dog with no interaction from the people yet, even if the dog is asking for it,
Yeah.
Right? You let the dog coexist. You let the dog get used to seeing us get up, down, move around, become more comfortable with our presence, which is what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They did the process of just hanging out with the dog for a while, right? Second step is if you want to interact with the dog, you call the dog over to you, right? This does two things. One, it gives the dog an option where if they're still uncomfortable, they just don't come to you, and then you don't give them the attention, which is fine, right? That says the dog is saying, I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not cool with this yet, right? Two, if the dog does come to you, you've put them into a slightly more compliant state of mind that allows that interaction to be done in a more safe manner.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I think I'm still on camera. And then I do the 10-second rule, which is actually about less than 10 seconds. That's really it. I want to keep him wanting it, so he appreciates it. This is going to be our most powerful reward in training. Is actually our touch and our approval, and he's going to be working for it. But what we're going to do right now, because it is his feeding time, is one of his major issues that he was having at the shelter is he does protect his food bowl. He is a resource guarder. So it's something that we have to work on to make him successful. Now, things about aggressive dogs is usually the most aggressive dogs you find are the most fearful dogs. So essentially, even food bowl aggression, it is fear related. How is it fear related? He is fearful that people want to steal his food. So what we're going to do is this is going to be the first time that we're going to, feed him in front of us. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the bowl in the far corner. We're going to drop the leash and let him eat. And what me and Earl are going to do is we're just going to act completely indifferent to the whole thing. Like we don't even really care. And then when he's done, we're not even going to go buy the food bowl either. We're going to act like we don't even really know it's there. And, and once he's kind of comfortable and comes back to us, the day is just going to go on as usual. We're not going to stick a rubber hand in there, just like I don't stick a rubber hand in Earl's, food when he's eating his food. He doesn't stick a rubber hand in my food. There's no need to really do it to him. If anything, that's just going to, show to him, oh yeah, I should be protective of my food bowl because people are going to, people like to stick rubber hands in there.
Okay, we're recording again here. All right, we kind of screwed up a little bit, and we paused the audio recording right at the point where this guy's getting the shit beat out of him by a rubber hand when they're talking about the ways that they actually demonstrate how shelters will test food, right? They'll stick the rubber hand in the bowl, this, that. Again, I think we were talking about, I don't know how far back this was, but we agree with all of this, right? The process of needing to mess with your dog, and I was saying that I did like an assessment yesterday with a client where they had a new dog they've only had for a couple weeks, and they said, oh, she's great, like I'll feed her and I'll stick my hand in the bowl and this and that. She's great with it. We've created this association that's, with our dogs, right off the rip, we need to do those things to get them used to it. Where, listen, I'm not saying we shouldn't be able to take our dog's food bowl if we need to take it, but when we just get a dog and we're establishing a relationship with them and we're establishing routine in the house, I don't want to be that intrusive on them right off the rip, because those are the kinds of things that will make these behaviors way, way worse, which is obviously not what we want. So, getting back to the video.
Be bothered. And then what's going to happen is, let me see, I'll put the camera so we could get us all here. And that's it. And Earl could release, if I knows it's over there, release the leash. Okay, eat your food. Over there. There. Look, eat your food. Don't know what's there? There, look. There, look. Good boy. Yep. Wide angle lens.
All right, from there we talked about,
he's eating.
so they're feeding this dog
really
in the
care,
corner,
right?
obviously.
Do you like dog food, Earl?
I'd said, this is probably not the safest way of handling this, obviously. They have the dog off leash in the corner. The way they were doing it originally, where the guy in the bite suit was holding the leash, had direct control over the dog still. Obviously, something like that is going to be significantly safer, because if the dog turns and tries to bite him or gets defensive and tries to come after them, he's got a bite suit on. Nothing bad's going to happen. Other dude ain't got no bite suit on. So not the safest way. Then we started getting into also like this process they're talking about, leaving the dog to eat. I was describing the shelters we'll see commonly one thing people will do in the shelter system with dogs to test their resource guarding abilities is they'll essentially for a X period of time, a week, something like that, they'll give the dog unlimited access to food, right? So they'll constantly have that food dish full. They'll make sure the dog, there's never a lack of food, because there's this kind of mentality that maybe the dog was starved before and needed to fight for its food or this or that.
Yeah.
It's rarely ever the case, right? And we rarely ever find that over that period of time it actually solves the problem. I think if it does wind up solving the problem, the resource guarding really was not that extreme, you know, and it probably wasn't the food itself or the food bowl that was the trigger. It was probably the dog was just defensive in general, right? And as they got more comfortable with you, that behavior dwindled down. Same with this process of just leaving the dog be to interact with their food, right? Like I said a little bit ago, you know, the process of being near the dog, and if the dog growls or whatever, showing them it doesn't work is an important part of this process. But there are a lot of dogs that have a much higher intensity with that resource guarding. Well, they'll disengage from this bowl from, 20, 30 feet away like these guys are, and they'll still come after you, right? If you start walking around in a way that they don't like or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's a little more to the process than just that. But these are all great practices as far as if you don't have a dog with resource guarding issues, or if you have a dog that has very minor resource guarding issues, starting to get them acclimated to the feeding process.
No, yeah, me neither. I'm pasta kind of. Nope, me neither. At this stage of training too, not only, we're not going to go over there and mess with him. Even when he's done, we're not even going to act like we want anything to do with the actual bowl. All right, so we set off the pace right with him, so he knows he doesn't really have to worry about the whole bowl thing. It really is a good idea. Even when caring for, a shelter dog or a rescue dog, even if we were boarding a dog that has resource guarding, I don't like the dogs even to see me pick up their ball. We take the ball after they're out of their kennel. We'll stash them somewhere else, and then we'll go grab the ball afterwards. The more they learn, the more that we show them we don't want the ball, it actually makes the problem less and less and easier to manage when we do further training. So, what is that? Did you like that? Huh? You want some affection again? Now again, Earl is in the bite suit not because he likes to look cool, but because this is his first day with Darren. So it's just to protect him in case he moves a little too quick, makes Darren feel uncomfortable, and also by the new handler feeling comfortable and protected, they're actually less hesitant. Which makes it easier for the for the dog, because when we're not protected and we're tentative, it makes the dogs nervous too. So when
Further agreeing, right? So when we're working with new dogs, this is why we incorporate muzzles, or in some case, some people will use like a bite suit or something like that if there's no way to get a muzzle on the dog. And a lot of the reasoning for that is because if we aren't in a position where we feel totally protected, we're going to act abnormal, right? The more abnormal we act if we're dealing with a dog that has fear aggression issues, the weirder that dog is going to act in addition to that. So by us being able to act really normal, it helps decrease the stress on the dog.
Yeah.
when we cover ourselves, it makes the dogs more successful as well. Here's my phone. I gotta see how my kid did the first day on the bus. So I hope everyone understood through my stuttering, and we'll keep you updated. Good job, Darren. Good boy. Good boy.
Look at that face.
Handsome boy. Yeah, look at that. That's the face of the most. That's what the real face of a vicious dog, right there. All right.
All right. Yeah, all seems pretty solid to me.
Yeah.
Got no problems with any of that, as far as, she was talking about how their opinions on them pushing for regulation and this and that, again, getting into that conversation. The problem when you get into regulation or like any sort of like censorship in the dog training world and this and that is who is the one that decides, Everybody thinks their method is the way, obviously. But the second you give that power to somebody, it's always going to piss off another party a little bit, you know? And I just don't know how we successfully come up with a way where it's like, you know, we're able to regulate it fairly that still keeps like the artistic touch of dog training alive and well, right?
Yeah.
Because every dog is different from the standpoint of like they still respond in the same way. They're still listening in the same manner and stuff like that. They're still, you know, using the same scientific methods and stuff. But the approach in which we add all of those things in changes from dog to dog. So, So I don't know. So.
Yeah. We'll have to like kind of delve in, maybe find a couple more of his videos in the future.
Yeah. I messaged the person back and asked if there was any particular things that they had questions about or anything like that. But all in all, seems fine. So today's kind of a little intermediate episode, obviously. Next week is going to be really good. Hope you guys enjoyed. You know, the first conversation, obviously, is very important for a lot of people about struggling with dogs out in public and getting past those types of issues. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up on that.
Yeah. I think it's good. I'm really excited for next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a solid one. Catch you guys on the flip side.